The marriage of Joseph. The appearance and speech of Joseph made so deep an impression on Asenath that no sooner had she reached her apartment than she divested herself of robes of state, took off her jewels, and put on sackcloth instead, strewed ashes on her head, and supplicated God amid tears to grant her pardon for her sins. In this manner she spent 7 days and 7 nights in her chamber. Not even her 7 attendants were permitted to enter her presence during the time of her penance. On the morning of the 8th day an angel appeared to her and told her to put away her sackcloth and ashes and dress herself stately, for this day she had been born anew, he said, to eat the blessed bread of life, to drink of the cup of life immortal, and anoint herself with the oil of life eternal. Asenath was about to set food and drink before her angelic guest when she perceived a honeycomb of wondrous form and fragrance. The angel explained to her that it had been produced by the bees of paradise, to serve as food for the angels and the elect of God. He took a small portion of it for himself, and the rest he put into Asenath's mouth, saying, "From this day forth your body shall bloom like the eternal flowers in paradise. Your bones shall wax fat like cedars, strength and endurance shall be yours, your youth shall never fade, and your beauty never perish, and you shall be like a metropolis surrounded by a wall." At the request of Asenath, the angel blessed also her 7 attendants with the words, "May the Lord bless you and make you to be 7 pillars of the city of refuge." Then the angel left her, and she saw him ascend heavenward in a chariot of fire drawn by 4 steeds. Now she knew that she had not been entertaining a human being, but an angel. The celestial messenger had scarcely departed when a visit from Joseph was announced, and she hurried to dress and adorn herself for his reception. When she washed her face, she caught sight of it in the water, and saw it to be of such beauty as never before. So great had the transformation been brought by the angel. Joseph did not recognize her. He asked her who she was, and she replied, "I am your maidservant, Asenath. I have cast away my idols, and this day an angel came to me from heaven. He gave me of the bread of life, and to drink of the blessed cup. And he spoke these words to me, 'I give you to Joseph as his wife, that he may be your husband forever.' And furthermore the angel said, 'Your name is no longer Asenath, but now your name shall be City of Refuge, where the nations shall flee for safety.' And he also added, 'I go to Joseph to tell him all these things regarding you. Now, my lord, you know whether the man was with you and spoke to you in my behalf.' Joseph confirmed all she had said, and they embraced and kissed each other in a token of their betrothal, which they celebrated by a banquet with Potiphar and his wife. The wedding took place later in the presence of Pharaoh, who set golden crowns on the heads of the bride and the bridegroom, gave them his blessing, and made a 7 days' feast in their honor, to which he invited the nobles and princes of Egypt and of other countries. And during the 7 days of the wedding festivities, the people were prohibited, under penalty of death, to do no work. They were all to join in the celebration of Joseph's marriage. Kind and unkind brethren. On the 21st day of the 2nd month in the 2nd of the 7 years of famine, Jacob came down to Egypt, and his daughter-in-law Asenath visited him. She marveled not a little at his beauty and strength. His shoulders and arms were like an angel's, and his loins like a giant's. Jacob gave her his blessing, and with her husband she returned home, accompanied by the sons of Leah, while the sons of the handmaids, remembering the evil they had once done to Joseph, kept aloof. Levi in particular had conceived a fondness for Asenath. He was especially close to the living God, for he was a prophet and a sage. His eyes were open, and he knew how to read the celestial books written by the finger of God. He revealed to Asenath that he had seen her future resting place in heaven, and it was built on a rock and encompassed by a diamond wall. On their journey they met the son of Pharaoh, the successor to the throne, and he was so transported with Asenath's beauty that he made the plan of murdering Joseph in order to secure possession of Asenath. He summoned Simon and Levi and by blandishments and promises sought to induce them to put Joseph out of the way. Simon was so enraged that he would have felled Pharaoh's sons at once, had not his brother Levi, who was endowed with the gift of prophecy, divined his purpose and frustrated it by stepping on his foot, while whispering, "Why are you so angry with the man? We that fear God may not repay evil with evil." He told him that nothing would induce them to execute the wickedness he had proposed. Rather, he advised him not to undertake anything against Joseph, or else he would kill him with the sword that had served him in the slaughter of the inhabitants of Shechem. The culprit was seized with frantic alarm and fell down before Simon and Levi to entreat their mercy. Levi raised him up, saying, "Fear not, but abandon your wicked plan, and harbor no evil against Joseph." Nevertheless, the son of Pharaoh did not give up his criminal purpose. He approached the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah and sought to accomplish through them what he had failed with Simon and Levi. He called them into his presence and told them of a conversation between Joseph and Pharaoh that he had overheard. Joseph had said that he waited but to learn of the death of his father Jacob in order to do away with the sons of the handmaids, because they had been the ones to sell him into slavery. Their wrath excited against Joseph by these words, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah assented to the proposition of the son of Pharaoh. It was arranged that the son should kill Pharaoh, the friend of Joseph, while they would fall on their brother and put him out of the way. They were furnished with 600 able warriors and 50 spearmen for the purpose. The first part of the plan, the murder of Pharaoh, failed. The palace guard would not allow even the successor to the throne to enter his father's bedchamber, and he had to depart without having effected his crime. Now, Dan and Gad gave him the advice to take up his station with 50 archers in a secret place that Asenath had to pass on her homeward journey. Then he could make a successful attack and gain possession of her. Naphtali and Asher did not care to have anything to do with this hostile enterprise against Joseph, but Dan and Gad forced them into it, insisting that all the sons of the handmaids must stand together as men and repel the danger that threatened them. Treachery punished. From their ambush, the forces of the sons of Pharaoh fell on Asenath and her 600 attendants. They succeeded in hewing down the vanguard, and Asenath had to take flight. To her alarm, she encountered the son of Pharaoh with 50 mounted men. Benjamin, seated in the same chariot with her, came to her rescue, for in spite of his youth he was exceedingly courageous. He descended from the chariot, gathered rocks, and throwing them at the son of Pharaoh, struck him on his forehead and inflicted a severe wound. The charioteer aided him by keeping him supplied with rocks, which he cast at the 50 riders with such expert skill that he slew 48 of them with as many missiles. Meantime, the sons of Leah arrived on the spot and came to Asenath's aid, for Levi, with his prophetic spirit, had seen what was happening, and summoned his 5 brothers and had hurried to the spot. These 6 attacked the troops in ambush and cut them down. But the danger to Asenath was by no means removed. At this moment, the sons of the handmaids threw themselves on her and Benjamin with drawn swords. It was their intention to kill them both and to flee to cover in the depths of the woods. But as soon as Asenath supplicated God for aid, the swords dropped from the hands of her assailants, and they saw that the Lord was on the side of Asenath. They fell at her feet and entreated her grace. She soothed their anxiety with the words, "Be courageous and have no fear of your brothers, the sons of Leah. They are God-fearing men, but keep yourself in hiding until their wrath is appeased." When the sons of Leah appeared, Asenath fell down before them, and amid tears she begged them to spare the sons of the handmaids, and not repay with evil the evil they had meditated. Simon would not hear of making concessions. He insisted that the measure of their sins was full, and they must pay for them with their lives, for they had been the ones that had sold Joseph into slavery and brought down misfortune on Jacob and his sons. But Asenath did not leave off. Her urgent petitions won the day. She succeeded in calming the anger of Simon, and in Levi she had a secret ally. For this prophet knew the hiding place of the sons of the handmaids, and he did not betray it to Simon, lest his wrath be increased at the sight of them. It was also Levi that restrained Benjamin from giving the death blow to the heavily wounded son of Pharaoh. Far from permitting harm to be done to him, he washed his wounds, put him into a chariot, and took him to Pharaoh, who thanked Levi from his heart for his service of loving kindness. Levi's efforts were in vain. 3 days later the son of Pharaoh died of the wounds inflicted by Benjamin, and from grief over the loss of his firstborn son, Pharaoh followed him soon after, departing this life at the age of 177 years. His crown he left to Joseph, who ruled over Egypt for 48 years thereafter. He, in turn, handed the crown on to the grandchild of Pharaoh, an infant in arms at the time of his grandfather's death, toward whom Joseph had acted a father all of his life. The death and burial of Joseph. On his deathbed, Joseph made his brothers take an oath, and part of the oath was that on their deathbeds they make their sons also take the oath, to carry his bones to Palestine, when God comes to bring them up out of Egypt. He said, I, a ruler, could take my father's body up to the Holy Land while it was still intact. Of you, I only request that you carry my bones out of Egypt and bury them anywhere in Palestine, for I know that the burial place of the fathers was to be the tomb only of the 3 patriarchs and their 3 wives. Joseph requested this oath from his brothers and not from his sons, for he feared the Egyptians would not give the sons permission to transport his bones, even if they recalled what Joseph had been allowed to do with his father's body. They would object that Joseph had been the viceroy, and a wish preferred by one so high could not be denied. Furthermore, he adjured his brothers not to leave Egypt until a Redeemer should appear and announce his message with the words, Pakad, I have surely visited you, a tradition which Joseph had received from his father, who got it from Isaac, and Isaac, in turn, had heard it from Abraham. And he told them that God would redeem Israel through Moses, and the Egyptian redemption would begin in the month of Tishri, when Israel would be freed from slave labor, and would be completed in the following Nisan, when they would leave Egypt. Joseph also admonished his brothers to walk in the ways of the Lord, so that they might become worthy of his grace and help. Especially, he impressed on his brothers and his sons the virtue of chastity and a steadfast moral life. He told them all that had happened to him, the hatred of his brothers, the persecutions of the wife of Potiphar, the slander, envy, and malice of the Egyptians, to show them that those who fear the Lord are not forsaken by him in darkness or bondage, or tribulation or distress. I was sold into slavery, he said, but the Lord delivered me. I was thrown into prison, but his strong hand helped me. I was tortured by hunger, but the Lord himself gave me sustenance. I was alone, and God comforted me. And as for you, if you will walk in the ways of chastity and purity, in patience and humility of heart, the Lord will dwell among you. And if you, my children, will observe the commandments of the Lord, he will raise you up here, in this world, and bless you there, in the world to come. If men seek to do evil to you, pray for them, and you will be delivered from all evil by the Lord. On account of my forbearing patience, I received the daughter of my master to wife, and her dowry was 100 talents of gold. And God gave me also beauty like the beauty of a flower, more than all the children of Jacob. And he preserved me to old age in vigor and beauty, for in all things did I resemble Jacob. Joseph continued and told them the visions he had had, in which the future of Israel was revealed to him, and then he closed with these words, I know that the Egyptians will oppress you after my death, but God will execute vengeance for your sake, and he will lead you to the land promised to your fathers. But you must carry my bones with you, for if my remains are taken to Canaan, the Lord will be with you in light, and Behar will be with the Egyptians in darkness. Also take the bones of your mother Zilpah, and bury them near the graves of Bilhah and Rachel." These words ended, he stretched out his feet and slept his eternal sleep. And the whole of Israel mourned him, and the whole of Egypt was in great grief, for he had been a compassionate friend to the Egyptians, and had done good to them, giving them wise counsel and assistance in all their undertakings. Joseph's wish that his bones should rest in the Holy Land was fulfilled when the Israelites went forth from Egypt, and no less a personage than Moses applied himself to its execution. Such was Joseph's reward for the devotion he had displayed in the interment of his father's body, for he had done all things needful himself, leaving nothing to others. Therefore, so great a man as Moses busied himself with the realization of Joseph's wish. For 3 days and 3 nights preceding the Exodus, Moses hunted up and down through the land of Egypt for Joseph's coffin, because he knew that Israel could not leave Egypt without heeding the oath given to Joseph. But his trouble was in vain. The coffin was nowhere to be found. Serah, the daughter of Asher, met Moses, tired and exhausted, and in answer to her question about the cause of his weariness, he told her of his fruitless search. Serah took him to the Nile River and told him that the leaden coffin made for Joseph by the Egyptians had been sunk there after having been sealed up on all sides. The Egyptians had done this at the instigation and with the help of the magicians, who, knowing that Israel could not leave the country without the coffin, had used their arts to put it in a place where it could not be removed. Moses now took Joseph's cup, and he cut 4 flat pieces from it, and engraved a lion on one of them, an eagle on the second, a bull on the third, and a human figure on the fourth. He threw the first, with the lion, into the river, saying at the same time, "Joseph, Joseph, the hour for the redemption of Israel has arrived. The Shekinah lingers here only for your sake. The clouds of glory await your coming. If you will show yourself, well and good. If not, then we are clear from our oath." But the coffin did not appear. Then Moses threw the second plate into the water, with the figure of the eagle, repeating the same words. But again the coffin did not rise from the bed of the Nile, and there it remained also when he threw in the third plate, bearing the figure of the bull, and called on Joseph a third time to come forth. But the fourth plate with the human figure brought the coffin to the surface of the water. Moses seized it, and with joy he carried it off. While Israel had been busy gathering gold and silver from the Egyptians, Moses had been thinking of nothing but Joseph's coffin, and his happiness was great that he had been permitted to fulfill the wish of Joseph. During the 40 years of wandering through the desert, the coffin was in the midst of Israel as a reward for Joseph's promise to his brothers, "I will nourish you and take care of you." God had said, "As you live, for 40 years they will take care of your bones." All this time in the desert, Israel carried 2 shrines with them. One, the coffin containing the bones of Joseph, the other, the ark, containing the covenant of the living God. Wayfarers who saw the 2 shrines wondered, and they would ask, "How does this ark of the dead come next to the ark of the ever-living?" The answer was, "The dead man enshrined in the one fulfilled the commandments enshrined in the other. In the latter it is written, 'I am the Lord your God.' And Joseph had said, 'Am I in the place of God?' In the one it is written, 'You shall have no other gods before my face.' And Joseph said, 'I fear God.' Here it is written, 'You shall not take the name of your Lord God in vain.' And therefore he did not swear by God, but said, 'By the life of Pharaoh.' Here it is written, 'Remember the Sabbath day.' And he said to the overseer of his palace on Friday, 'Slay and make ready,' meaning to prepare for the Sabbath. Here it is written, 'Honor your father and your mother.' And he said, when his father desired to send him to his brothers, 'Here I am,' although he knew it was perilous for him to go. Here it is written, "You shall not kill," and he refrained from murdering Potiphar when Potiphar's wife urged him to do it. Here it is written, "You shall not commit adultery," and he scorned the adulterous proposals of Potiphar's wife. Here it is written, "You shall not steal," and he stole nothing from Pharaoh, but he gathered up all the money and brought it to Pharaoh's house. Here it is written, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor," and he told his father nothing of what his brothers had done to him, though what he might have told was the truth. Here it is written, "You shall not covet," and he did not covet Potiphar's wife. On their arrival in the Holy Land, the Israelites buried the bones of Joseph in Shechem, for God spoke to the tribes, saying, "From Shechem did you steal him, and to Shechem shall you return him." God, who is so solicitous about the dead bodies of the pious, is even more solicitous about their souls, which stand before him like angels and do their service ministering to him. Significant names. Jacob raised all his sons in the fear of God, and taught them the ways of a pious life. He was quite severe when there was need to make his lessons impressive. He reaped the fruits of his labor, for all his sons were godly men of stainless character. The ancestors of the 12 tribes resembled their fathers in piety, and their acts were no less significant than those of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Like these three, they deserved to be called the fathers of Israel. God made a covenant with them as he had with the 3 patriarchs, and to this covenant their descendants owe their preservation. The very names of the tribes point to the redemption of Israel. Reuben is so called because God sees the affliction of his people. Simon, because he hears its groaning. Levi, he joins himself to his people when Israel suffers. Judah, Israel will thank God for its deliverance. Issachar, it will be rewarded for its suffering. Zebulun, God will have a dwelling place in Israel. Benjamin, he swore by his right hand to help. Dan, he will judge the nation that subjugates Israel. Naphtali, he bestowed the Torah on Israel, and she dropped sweetness like the honeycomb. Gad, the Lord gave manna to Israel, and it was like coriander seed. Asher, all nations will call Israel happy. And Joseph, because God will add a second redemption for Israel to the first. Redemption from the wicked kingdom at the end of times, as from Egypt in former times. Not only the names of Jacob's sons are significant, but the names of their sons as well. Thus, the names of the sons of Issachar express the activities of the tribe known for its learning above all others. The oldest was called Tola, worm, as the silkworm is distinguished for its mouth, with which it spins. So also the men of the tribe of Issachar for the wise words of their mouth. The second is Pua, madder plant. As this plant colors all things, so the tribe of Issachar colors the whole world with its teachings. The third is Jashub, the returning one. For through the teachings of Issachar, Israel will be turned back to its heavenly Father. And Shimron, the fourth, is the observing one, to indicate that the tribe of Issachar observes the Torah. The names of the sons of Gad likewise interpret the history of that tribe. During Israel's sojourn in Egypt, it had strayed from the right path, but when Aaron appeared as prophet in Monitor and called the Israelites to cast away the abominations of their eyes and forsake the idols of Egypt, they heard his words. Hence the double name Ozni and Esbon, borne by one of the sons of Gad, for this tribe heard the word of God and fulfilled his will. The grandsons of Asher bear the names Heber and Melchiel, because they were associates of kings, and their inheritance yielded royal dainties. Partly the history of the tribe of Benjamin can be read in the names of its chiefs. It consisted originally of 10 divisions, descended from Benjamin's 10 sons, but 5 of them perished in Egypt on account of their ungodly ways, from which no admonition could turn them aside. Of the 5 families remaining, 2, The descendants of Bela and those of Ashbel had always been God-fearing. The others, the Ahiramites, the Shephuppamites, and the Huphamites, repented of their sins, and in accordance with the change in their conduct was the change in their names. Ehi had become Ahiram, because the breach with the Exalted One was healed. Muppira was called Shephuppim, because they afflicted themselves in their penance, and Huppim was turned into Hupham, to indicate they had cleansed themselves from sin. As a reward for their piety, the family springing from Bela was permitted to have two subdivisions, the Ardites and the Naamites. Their names point them out as men that know well how the fear of God is to be manifested, and whose deeds are exceedingly lovely. Naphtali was another tribe of steadfast piety, and the name of his sons testify to this. Jaziel, because the tribesmen raised a partition wall between God and the idols, inasmuch as they trusted in God and condemned the idols. Gunai, because God was their protection, and Jezer and Shillem designate the Naphtalites as men devoted to God with all their hearts. Reuben's testament. 2 years after the death of Joseph, Reuben fell sick. Feeling that his end was near, he called together his sons, his grandsons, and his brothers to give them his last admonitions from the fullness of his experience. He spoke, "Hear, my brothers, and also my children. Give ear to Reuben your father in the commands that I enjoin on you. And behold, I adjure you this day by the God of heaven, that you walk not in the follies of youth and the fornications to which I was addicted, wherewith I defiled the bed of my father Jacob. For I tell you now that for 7 months the Lord afflicted my loins with a terrible plague, and if my father Jacob had not interceded for me, the Lord would have swept me away. I was 20 years of age when I did what was evil before the Lord, and for 7 months I was sick to death. Then I did penance for 7 years in the innermost depths of my soul. Wine and strong drink I drank not. The flesh of animals passed not my lips. Dainties I tasted not, because I mourned over my sins, for they were great." Then he admonished those gathered around him to beware of the 7 tempter spirits, which are the spirit of fornication, gluttony, strife, love of admiration, arrogance, falsehood, and injustice. He cautioned them especially against unchastity, saying, "Pay no heed to the glances of a woman, and remain not alone with a married woman. Do not occupy yourselves with the affairs of women. Had I not seen Bilhah bathe in a secluded spot, I would not have fallen into the great sin I committed. For after my mind had once seen the nakedness of the woman, I could not sleep until I had accomplished the abominable deed. For when our father Jacob went to his father Isaac, while we sojourned in Eder, not far from Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, Bilhah was drunk with wine, and she lay asleep uncovered in her bedchamber. I entered in, saw her nakedness, and committed the sin, and I went out again, leaving her asleep. But an angel of God revealed my impious act to my father Jacob at once. He came back and mourned over me, and never again did he approach Bilhah. Unto the very last day of his life, I had not the assurance to look my father in the face, or speak to my brothers regarding my disgrace. And even now my conscience tortures me on account of my sin. Nevertheless, my father spoke words of comfort to me, and prayed to God in my behalf, that the wrath of the Lord might depart from me, as he showed me. Reuben admonished his children impressively to join themselves to Levi, because he will know the law of the Lord, he said, and he will give ordinances for judgment, and bring sacrifices for all Israel, until the end of the times, as the anointed high priest of whom the Lord spoke. After announcing his last will to his sons, Reuben departed this life at the age of 125 years. His body was laid in a coffin until his sons bore it away from Egypt and carried it up to Hebron, where they buried it in the double cave. Next, Simon's admonition against envy. End part 34 of 95, thelegendsofthejews.com.